Okay, hello and welcome everybody to the Royal Meteorological Society's national meeting. The theme of today is taking a look at the impact COVID-19 has had and what we can learn from that for climate change communication. But we have a mixture of things going on this afternoon. We'll have a panel to discuss this important topic later on, but we also have our AGM, which we'll be starting with this afternoon, and a couple of medal lectures and also awarding our awards for 2021 later on as well. But before I start, I'm going to introduce the Deputy CEO from the Institute of Physics. So Rachel Youngman is here really just to welcome us to the Institute.
Thanks very much, Liz. Thank you. And a very warm welcome to all of you. I have to do something I'm not really qualified to do, first of all, but they've asked me to do a bit of housekeeping. So I will do my best. There is, if a bell goes, there is no fire alarm test today. So it does mean that you do need to leave the building. And there are stairs, you probably came down these ones. There's also stairs this way as well. And they go straight up onto a door, which takes you out onto the street. So it's fairly straightforward. There'll be lots of our staff around as well to help. And there are bathrooms that way. So if you haven't found those already, you just go that way and you will find them there. With that out of the way, just a very warm welcome to all of you. It's always a pleasure to see the Royal Meteorological Society here. And I hope you know that you are always very welcome to use this building, whether as individuals or small groups or as an organisation. We're always very pleased to welcome you, and there's usually space, so please do feel free to make use of it. There's a lot that we share in common, of course. We have members in common. We have topics that are discussed by both our organisations, sometimes together. We even share former chief executives. Paul left only on Friday, and he's already complained about the heating and asked who he can complain to. The answer is he has to complain to the person who was responsible for putting the heating in originally. So he'll have a good conversation with himself a little later. There is a lot of work that we're doing, of course, on climate. Is a matter of great concern to all of us. And I was pleased earlier this week to welcome a delegation from the Kenyan government and from the Kenyan High Commission here in London. And they brought with them some university senior professors who are working on climate back in Kenya and telling us the very real impact that that's having, particularly around the Lake Victoria area, and some of the really heartbreaking stories about the impact that's having on local communities that they're seeing. The reason for their visit is because the IOP has been working on a major bid into the UK government, which we've just put in to BAYS, and that's to increase research collaboration between the UK and 5 African countries, of which Kenya is one, and that's for climate weather management systems and energy solutions. And we've been working, I know, with some of your members as well on that bid. So despite the fact that probably UK bank account is pretty empty, we're still hoping that we can have some funding to start proposals coming in during the course of the early part of next year. We're also looking as an organisation about the future. I know we've been having some conversations with Liz about our own plans for net zero, but also what it means for us as an organisation and for a sustainable future. And I'm pleased to be leading on some work looking at how we as a professional body and learned society responds to what's commonly called the ESG framework, which is about one of the most complicated systems that anyone could possibly introduce. But we're trying to get something that is appropriate for our type of organisation. So a few things that we're doing, and I hope that we will continue to have many conversations with your organisation. But I think that's quite enough for me, and I want to just wish you a very good meeting this afternoon. Congratulations from getting your AGM done. We have not fixed our date yet, so we're way behind you. But we hope that you have a very good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Liz. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and it's great to be back. So 3 years ago, we held our AGM here, and obviously COVID then got in the way and we haven't been able to hold a face-to-face AGM since then. So it's great to be back at the Institute of Physics, but it's great to be back at face-to-face meetings and an opportunity to meet you and have those connections again and conversations again face-to-face. And I'm sure we're all fed up of Zoom calls and team calls and meeting people on screen. So it's really, really good to be back. And we have about 80 people who are registered here, but we do have people who are joining us virtually as well. And that's also quite new for us with the AGM, the first time we're running it as a hybrid event. So obviously you guys in the room, but also we've got about 30 people joining us online as well. And we hope we can make the afternoon work for both audiences, whether you're in the room or online. And you'll see hopefully how we can interact with people online during the course of the afternoon. So yeah, basically for me, I just wanted to run through what we're going to do for the afternoon. And the first thing really is the annual general meeting, which will be starting in a few minutes. And I'll introduce you to our president, who will chair us through the annual general meeting. We then have our Mason Gold Medal lecture given by Professor Keith Shine. So this was the Mason Gold Medal lecture from 2019, I think. And obviously because of COVID, we weren't able to give a face-to-face lecture. And so we've been holding off for a couple of years. So I'm delighted that we've been able to get back to these face-to-face meetings and Keith can present here today. We then have a refreshment break for half an hour, and then we will follow that on with the Simons Gold Medal lecture, which Professor Subramand will present, the winner of the Simons Gold Medal in 2020. So we're kind of catching up on some of our medal lectures here today as well. So delighted that we can have both of those. We've then got a really interesting panel discussion. So the theme really for the afternoon is around kind of what we can learn from the COVID pandemic, and the communication and the science that came out around the COVID pandemic and how we can learn lessons from that and opportunities from that to help us with climate change, meeting the climate change agenda. So we have a panel of people, experts in both areas who will join us this afternoon for that panel discussion. And then we'll finish off the afternoon with a presentation of our 2021 awards and prizes. And again, it's an opportunity for us to celebrate all the people that are involved in the world of meteorology by presenting these awards. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So I'm going to pass over now to our president, Dave Griggs. So Dave, if you'd like to come to the front, and we'll move forward now into the AGM.
Thanks, Liz. Well, as Liz said, it's a delight to be here in person. This is my first face-to-face meeting as president of the Royal Meteorological Society, 3 months before my term of office comes to an end. So it's been a lot of Zoom calls over the last 2 years, but it's a delight to be here. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 171st annual general meeting of the Royal Meteorological Society, which I now declare open. We're delighted to be able to host this as a hybrid event, and it's wonderful to see so many of you here in person. And we can also welcome those who are joining us remotely. We do have staff on hand in the room to try and make the virtual experience as integrated as possible, and they will help to read out any questions you may have when we come to seek a proposer or a seconder, and they will put their hand up and I will go to them and they will relay the questions to me. So all of the relevant papers for the AGM are available on the Society's website. And please note that everyone is welcome to join this AGM, but only members of the Society can vote. So moving on to the agenda. You should already have seen the agenda for today. It was circulated with the April issue of Weather, and papers for this year's AGM are available on the website. We've had no notifications of other business which had to be given in writing, so I don't propose to take anything under that agenda item. We'll be happy to take any general questions under agenda item 4.2, questions to the Chief Executive and Council. So I could ask that you hold your general questions until that agenda item. So then agenda item 1, minutes and actions. So are there any questions or comments related to the minutes of the AGM held virtually on the 7th of June 2021. There were no actions from the 2021 meeting. So can we adopt those minutes as a true record of events? Unless there are any, I don't see any. So can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? And when I ask for a proposer and seconder, I'll ask you to read out your name because your name has to be recorded in the minutes. So can I have a proposer and a seconder to approve the minutes? Leslie Gray. Anna Gelly. Thank you. For viewing members online, just remember you can propose or second, just type approve in the meeting chat, and that will be relayed to me. So thank you for that. Moving on to agenda item 2, election of officers. It gives me great pleasure to introduce two new proposals for officers and members of council for 2022-23. Those being proposed are Becky Venton as chair of the Professional Accreditation Board and Edmund Henley as chair of the Meetings and Conferences Committee. Council circulated a list of duly qualified individuals for officers and members of council in March in a notice to members. The Society did not receive any additional nominations as prescribed by bylaw 48. We therefore declare that the nominations be elected unopposed under bylaw 49, and they will take up their posts from the 1st of October 2022. So council, this slide shows the officers and members of council from the 1st of October 2022 to the 30th of September 23. And as you will see, Leslie Gray will be taking over from me as president at that time. I would really like to thank those retiring officers of council, those who are retiring at that meeting. We have two of them, Will Lang. I think it's appropriate for me to say a few words about just the contribution that they've made to the Society. Will took over as chair of the Accreditation Board in October 2017. And during the last 5 years, he's led an accreditation review, recognising the changing workforce across the meteorological sector and in interdisciplinary roles. With the introduction of a new resource at the Society to support accreditation, Will was able to progress the recommendations from the review, including an update to the accreditation specialisms. The Society is extremely grateful to Will for his support and leadership over the last 5 years. Amanda Maycock is also stepping down. Amanda has been involved in the Society's events since she was a student volunteer and has been a member of the Meetings Committee for over 10 years and chair of the committee for the last 5 years. She's seen many changes to the Society's meetings programme over that time, most notably, of course, over the last 2 years, as the Society needed to rapidly adapt during the COVID pandemic, moving a full programme of events offline as virtual events. Amanda should be very proud of her achievements in this role, and the Society would like to thank her for her commitment and enthusiasm. And finally, I'd like to place on record our thanks to all of those who've contributed their time and effort in supporting the Society in 2021. Obviously, it's been an extraordinarily difficult year or 2 years, and it will continue to be so for a while going into the future. But the fact that we've been able to continue a full programme of events and meetings and so on, albeit virtually, is an enormous credit to both the staff and all of the volunteers of the Society. So moving on to agenda item 3, proposed amendments to the bylaws. So council is proposing the following revision to bylaw 34. It has been circulated to you. Any member, so the proposed amendment now reads, any member who has been a fellow or member for at least 20 years, including time as a foreign member prior to 1983, and does not work for remuneration, is entitled on written application to pay 50% of the annual subscription with no curtailment of privileges. Such members may also receive the Society's journal publications at 50% of the rate for members. So please note that fellows or members already receiving the concessionary rate relating to bylaw 34 prior to 2022 will not be affected by this change, and nor are they required to reapply. So can I please seek approval for this bylaw change, and can I have a proposer and a seconder? Yes, can you shout out your name?
Derek Swanwick.
Derek Swanwick.
Neil Wells.
Neil Well. Oh, sorry, I should have gone over that. I'll go over there next time. So moving on to agenda item 4, highlights from 2021. And at this point, I will pass over to Liz to give her presentation on the highlights.
Okay, so I'm going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes taking you on a whirlwind tour around all the activities of the Royal Meteorological Society. And I'm happy to take questions from this presentation under agenda item 4.2. So I'll pass over to Jenny to do the account straight after. So there is an opportunity to ask questions later. Okay, so move on. Why it's not working. Excuse me a minute. Let's just restart from the beginning. It's probably easier. Okay, perfect. So the Society is at the heart of the debate around climate change, and last year, 2021, was a very busy year for the Society, mainly because of COP26, which was obviously taking place in Glasgow in the UK. And there was a lot of work in the build-up to COP26, but also during COP26 itself. So we had 5 members of the team attend the whole 2 weeks of COP26 in Glasgow, and you can see 4 of us on the top left-hand side, and Kirsty, the 5th member, who is doing one of our video bulletins at the event itself. And that was one of the key activities, I think, during the COP26 event. We were publishing 2 video bulletins, one for schools, and this was published every day, going into daily registration within schools to get children engaging with what was happening at COP26, and a second daily video bulletin that was more for the general public. And both of those managed to reach over an audience greater than 50,000 people. So we were really delighted with the reach that we had from those video bulletins. Earlier in the year, we produced a joint international climate communique. We led a group of organisations, international organisations in meteorology, to sign up to a communique, recognising the importance of climate change and the importance of the work that we were all doing in the run-up to COP26. And we had 42 organisations sign up to that climate communique that was launched in March 2021. We also produced a series of briefing papers, which were published in Weather, and alongside them, podcasts to make them engaging with a wider audience. And we also ran a virtual event in the autumn when shortly after the IPCC AR6 Working Group 1 report came out. It was a virtual event as we were running all our events virtually last year, and we had over 400 attendees at that event. Last year was also important around net zero. So the Society made its net zero pledge in the run-up to COP26. It's in 2 halves. Basically, the first half is around the in-house emissions called Scope 1 and 2 emissions. And the Society has set a challenging target to achieve net zero by 2025. The second half is around the outsourced emissions, the in-service chain emissions, and we call that Scope 3. And the aim is to reduce our emissions by 2030, but again, thinking about how we might achieve that through some feasibility assessments. So as part of this pledge, we signed up to the pledge to net zero along with 100 other signatories last year. We also are part of CAFA, which is the Climate Action for Associations. And finally, we're involved with the professional bodies Climate Action Charter. So we have a signatory on there as well. And for each of those, we have to provide evidence against the pledge and the work that we're doing regarding this pledge to net zero. The bottom icon is relating to work we did with the Government of Jersey in the first half of 2021. So we chaired an advisory panel for the Jersey government as they were pulling together a citizen assembly on climate change. So bringing the community, the population of Jersey together to decide on how they wanted to get to net zero on the island of Jersey, and we were supporting that. We now move on to business development. This is overseen by our head of partnerships, Ella Clark. There are a number of areas under the business development, but I'm just going to focus on two for brevity. And the first one is around our jobs board, which has now been online for a number of years. We have thousands of users. So in 2021, there were 11,000 users of the jobs board. 34,000 views of the jobs of the 152 jobs that were posted. So an excellent resource for people who are looking for new careers within meteorology, but also for employers who are looking for new employees as well. And Ella also oversees our strategic partnerships, and there are many. I don't expect you to absorb all of these logos, but the middle section in the white box are our corporate partnerships that we work alongside. And then above and below that are the many partners that we work with, either on strategic projects or on events such as this, to deliver on our strategic objectives. At the beginning of 2021, we launched our 3-year strategic plan, and I would encourage you to go to the URL link at the bottom of this slide to take a closer look at the strategy if you haven't already seen it. It includes our 5 strategic objectives that you can see along the top of this slide, and our 8 cross-cutting themes across the whole of the work that we do, which includes our net zero commitment that I've already mentioned and the business development function that I'm covering at the moment. We move on to marketing and comms, an area that has grown certainly in recent years within the society. We now have 2 members of staff that look after marketing and comms. We've got Melissa Gabaldi, our communications manager, and Itana Breton, who is our digital marketing manager. And I think if you've been engaging with the society over the last 5 years or so, you will have noticed a difference in the amount of information that we provide through our website, through our social media, through various media activities that we do. So during 2021, we gave 188 media interviews. And I think for an organisation of our size, that's a phenomenal amount of media interviews, particularly one every couple of days. And those 188 media interviews led to over 2,500 items of media coverage. And that was about 1,000 up on the previous year. So again, an area that's growing within the society is our media work that we do, mainly covered by myself and Kirsty McCabe that you can see on the right-hand image. Also on this slide, you've got our social media, and again, all the numbers of followers and likes that we have on the social media. And again, in 2021, we saw growth in the people that were following us on each of these 4 areas. We move on to the website. So RMetS.org, and again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with our website. It includes regular news items, lots of weather and climate resources on there. There's information about the work of the society, lots of information about scientific publishing, and then links through to the publishing journals on the Wiley platform, and also podcasts. And I mentioned we're producing podcasts relating to our briefing papers. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the podcast platform and the URL here. And I would encourage you to go and listen to the podcasts that we have on there, relating some of them more general topics, but also around science papers that have been published. We move on to membership. So in 2021, we were delighted to see a growth in membership of about 3.5%. Taking total membership at the end of 2021 to 3,278. And as you can see, there's been a slight decline over recent years, so we were delighted to see that turnaround in decline in 2021. The administration for membership is overseen by Catherine Parker, our membership secretary. And I've just got a couple of graphs on here just showing a breakdown of membership. So the top left is a pie chart showing the breakdown of where the members are, their occupations. So we've got about 1/3 are working in academia, 1/3 are working in operational meteorology or consultancy roles, 15% are students. We have a very active student community of membership. And about 1/4 we class as enthusiasts, so people who don't work in meteorology, but just have a real passion and interest about weather and climate. And in the bottom right-hand side of this slide, there's a breakdown across the year groups, the age groups of our members, and also the gender. So blue is female and the orange is male. So you can see in the younger age categories, there's roughly a 50-50 split in gender, but obviously that changes as you go into the older categories. And membership development is really important. So this is overseen by our Membership Development Board, chaired by Shanti Majifia, who's in our audience as our General Secretary. And the focus really for membership development is about retention and growth of members. We also have a member of staff, Sharon Stevens, who works alongside Catherine on the membership work. And there's a whole raft of activities going on around membership and growth. And I won't cover all of the topics here, but maybe mention a few. We have now 25 student ambassadors dotted around the UK and internationally who work within their universities to encourage other students to engage with the Royal Meteorological Society and members of staff within those departments. We also did an upgrade to our CRM database system in 2021, and that's going to provide certainly a vast improvement to how we can manage and analyse the data around membership and how we can use that going forward. And membership retention, so we got 98% of members renewing last year. That was a fantastic result, and I think all credit to our membership team who worked extremely hard last year in maintaining that. We move on to professional accreditation. So the Royal Meteorological Society is the professional body for meteorology, and we oversee professional accreditation in meteorology, so the registered and chartered meteorologist. This is overseen by Catherine and Sharon, who also look after membership as well as accreditation. And you can see the numbers of registered meteorologists and chartered meteorologists at the end of 2021, both of them increasing by 7.5% and 9.5% respectively. We also have an online platform called Axis. This is used for uploading CPD records and also for applying for the registered and chartered meteorologists. And we saw a 15% increase in the number of users by the end of 2021. So it won't be a surprise to see that we saw a similar increase in the number of CPD records during that year as well. We move on to education and outreach. So these are really important charitable activities of the Royal Meteorological Society. We do a lot of work with engagement with government, and this work's overseen by Sylvia Knight, who's our head of education. And during 2021, we were working very closely with organisations pulling together a national climate education strategy. So this was a climax of a climate education summit that took place at Reading University last year. And we're also working very closely with the Department of Education, started last year and very much rolling on into this year as we start to take weather and climate resources into the curriculum. We worked very closely with the Welsh Examination Board, so WJEC, regarding translating some of our resources into Welsh. We've also been working with other examination bodies to review their exam questions and solution model answers to make sure that they are at a high standard as well. And we had some consultation last year around the new natural history GCSE that was launched earlier this year. We support teachers though throughout, and last year all of this was done virtually. So either through our online platform, which you can see in the middle of this slide, a course run on the FutureLearn platform called Come Rain or Shine, which is now permanently available for anyone to access. But for us, it's about getting training to teachers. We also delivered online training to trainee geography teachers so that they have the knowledge, skills and access to resources to bring weather and climate to life in the classroom. And we launched a book last year called Weather and Climate, A Teacher's Handbook. And we were very fortunate to be able to publish this book and get this out to 3,000 schools because of a generous legacy donation from Colin McKerra, who was a member of the Society until 2019. Last year as well, after many years of waiting, I'm sure Sylvia was delighted that we got METLink relaunched. This is our education website, and it's a platform for teachers and schools with a wealth of resources. And again, if you're not familiar with METLink, I would encourage you to go and have a look. The URL's at the bottom right of this slide. A wealth of information for teachers and schools. And if you're involved in STEM activities and want to get hold of material that you can use, then this is a really good place to get started. In 2021, we delivered new resources, some for the core maths, Key Stage 3, so working with other disciplines other than just science and geography, now moving into supporting the maths curriculum. We also provide resources after the IPCC AR6 Working Group 1 report for schools. and a number of resources with infographics, videos and animations to be used in the classroom. We've also started an annual diversity survey of UK meteorological graduates and a framework for analysing the work that we do, the geographical diversity of the work we do with interactions with teachers. We move on to outreach activities. I guess one of the main things that we do each year is our Weather Photographer of the Year competition. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of the winning images from last year. It was the 6th year that we've run this competition and the 3rd year that we've run it in conjunction with AccuWeather as our sponsor. On the right-hand side, so last year we were very busy moving the Weather Club, our public outreach arm, which was a separate website, and bringing it into the main RMetS website. So it now sits and has been rebranded as Met Matters and sits under one of the main tabs on the website that you can see here. And again, if you haven't been to visit any of the content on Met Matters, I would encourage you to go and have a look at that. Some fantastic material on there. And most of the Met Matters material is overseen by Kirsty McCabe, who's our comms officer, and you can see Kirsty's picture up in the top right. So meetings and conferences. So again, a challenging year for the Society, with all our meetings being virtual. But in 2020, we certainly got to kind of understand how we were going to deliver our virtual meetings. So it was playing that out into 2021. And we delivered 51 meetings in total. And you can see there's a pie chart on the left-hand side showing the breakdown of those meetings. So about half of them were run through our local centres, and I called them local in quote marks because they were all virtual and had very international and national audiences, so not the typical local centre meetings that we would have run prior to the COVID pandemic. And then the other breakdown, you can see roughly, 6 were national meetings, 6 were conferences, and then we had some special interest group meetings and some taster sessions and masterclasses that we were launching in 2021. On the right-hand side of the slide, and looks like it's cut off a little bit on this presentation, you can see the breakdown in the number of presentations from the local centres. So again, they were very active during the COVID lockdowns, delivering virtual meetings to a non-local audience. And the attendance across all of these meetings doubled in 2021. So we had in total just over 1,100 attendees at all of these 51 meetings. And you can see our events team across the top. So I've got Vicky Dickinson and Kat Bicknell, who are our event managers, and Hayley Proudlock, who's our events assistant. Science engagement. A lot of our work in 2021 was related to COP26, which I've spoken about already. We have a science engagement manager, Hannah Mallinson, and a science engagement committee, which has basically come from our climate science communications group. For those of you who remember that group from a few years ago. But it's broadened its science engagement, not just to focus on climate, but also to focus on weather. So the importance here is that we're communicating to both audiences with the same amount of information. And you can see a long list of activities that this committee and Hannah oversees. And as I say, COP26 was definitely a key activity in 2021. But we also published a book on the right-hand side, so Weather, a Force of Nature, using spectacular images from our Weather Photographer of the Year competition. And also each chapter has an essay talking about different areas of climate. And we have another book that's just recently been launched this year, the A to Z of weather. So we've started to produce more popular books for the general public. On the left-hand side, we've got some examples of some of the broadcast meteorologists that went through our climate change communication training. We continued that training during 2021, particularly for ITV, who wanted to not only take their broadcast meteorologists through the training, but also local journalists, heads of news, as they prepared to get ready for COP26. We've also broadened that communication training now, so we're doing work with PR companies. We've done some work with horticultural and gardening organisations. And again, there's an interest from lots of different organisations to get their members of staff up to speed with climate change, and particularly climate change communication. Scientific publishing. So this is one of our real strengths, and from an income perspective, one of the main income streams of the Royal Meteorological Society. Our main scientific publishing partner is Wiley. And during 2021, one of the key activities was renegotiating some of our contracts with Wiley. So We have 8 journals, and on my next slide, I'll show you the different journals we have, and 4 of them are wholly owned by the Royal Meteorological Society. So the contract for those 4 journals was up for renewal, and we spent a good length of time during 2021 renegotiating the contract with Wiley. We've also extended our contract for one of our data journals as well during that period. And then again, a long list of things that have been happening in the scientific publishing area, but I think it's worth noting we had a significant change in one of our editors-in-chief, Radon Hoof, who's here today, who stepped down from his leadership role on the International Journal of Climatology after being editor-in-chief for many years. And very grateful to Radon. So it was quite a transition during 2021 as Radon stepped down, and we brought in a whole new team really to manage that editorial board. So here are the 8 journals that we publish. The ones with the stars are fully open access, so half of our journals are fully open access, and the 4 that are on the middle of the graph of the slide are what we call hybrid. So they are subscription models, but you can pay to publish open access into them as well. You'll be familiar with some, I'm sure, Weather, for example, but we launched a new journal in 2021, the one in the bottom left, the Climate Resilience and Sustainability. And I mentioned the contract that we've just renewed, the 4 journals that we wholly own. Those are the 4 that are on the top line that you can see there. On the right-hand side is our journal hub. So all our journals can be accessed in one place. And as a member, you can go through from the membership, our website, if you're logged in, and you gain access to all this information as a member. So I'd encourage you again to go and have a look at that if you haven't done so already. At the bottom, just to highlight that we also work with Elsevier, who oversee our book series on weather and climate sciences. And we're starting to now see some of the books coming through that series to be published. So finally, in this section, I just wanted to talk about awards and prizes. I've listed all the award winners from our 2021 awards, and we'll be meeting these people and congratulating them later this afternoon. But I did want to mention that during 2021, in the bottom right here, we completed an awards review. So we really are proud of our awards and the achievements from our award winners, but we did recognise that the meteorological sector has changed over recent years, and it has become a much more interdisciplinary subject. We work across people within education and policy and other subject matters. So we were keen to review the awards to make sure they were still fit for purpose. And so in the next couple of weeks, we'll be relaunching our Society Awards. There'll be names that you see here of the awards that still remain, but we've included a number of new awards as well. So watch out for that in the next couple of weeks. So it just leaves me really to say a thank you. So thank you to my final members of my team, who basically are, I guess, work in the background. So they look after the key important things that make the society tick to allow us to exist. So that includes Sean Cave, who's our finance officer, Kathy Maxwell, who looks after IT, Kate Groom, my office manager, and Britta Jarvis, who's the admin assistant. But a big thank you really goes to all our volunteers. So we have over 400 volunteers who, without their help and assistance and your help and assistance, we wouldn't be able to deliver half of the work that you've seen presented here today. So it's really just an opportunity to thank my team, the society, but also the volunteers as well. In what has again been another challenging year for the society, as it has been for many of us as we were going through the COVID pandemic. So that's it from me. As I say, I'm happy to take some questions on this when we get to agenda item 4.2, but I'm going to invite Jenny Campbell up to the stage, who is our treasurer at the society, who can take you through the formal accounts of the society.
Thank you, Liz.
So let me get back in. You.
Super, thank you very much. I'm going to keep this brief. Okay, so I think the numbers will continue to reflect a society that has been working within the restrictions of the pandemic. And in an environment where face-to-face meetings continue to be difficult, there has been an ongoing impact on our events programme and business development activities. As a result, there has been some break on our ambition to diversify our revenues. However, what I should say is, in the face of a challenging environment, the Society's executives are to be congratulated on the terrific job they've done to embrace virtual and online tools to continue to drive the Society forward and, importantly, to maintain our key revenue streams. So, as you can see, revenues are marginally up this in 2021, and net income before investments is some 30% up on 2020. Investment sale and revaluation represents the movement in the value of our portfolio. 2021 was actually quite a good year for investors, as the success of the vaccine rollout enabled economies and corporate profits to recover strongly from the pandemic. And as a result, the Society's portfolio was up over 11%. And in total, as you can see here, our reserves at the end of the year were 2.7 million. The Charity Commission doesn't actually have an official cap on reserves. And given the unprecedented issues arising from the pandemic, the general view is that the level of acceptable reserves should be higher in order to provide appropriate buffers. And indeed, 2022 has already been much more challenging for investors. There are issues over rising interest rates, high inflation, and obviously the war in Ukraine. So I think it is reassuring that the Society enters 2022 with very healthy reserves. So looking at income in a little bit more detail, as Liz, I think, alluded to, scientific publishing continues to be the major contributor for the Society's revenues. It accounts for some 70% of our revenue. You see here there is a small decline in revenues year on year. This reflects adverse exchange rates in the year and some reduction in subscription revenues as we see the ongoing shift between subscription and open access. Membership revenues have increased by some 15% despite a freeze in subscription rates last year. And in a climate where many learned societies are struggling with membership numbers, this is really a terrific result and a tribute to the hard work of the membership team and the committee. Conferences once again were held virtually with very encouraging levels of online attendance, but we do very much look forward to returning to face-to-face conferences this year. So looking at expenditure, expenditure is very much largely in line with prior year, with no material differences that I need to flag up, really. Clearly, spending on such things as grants awarded, travel, meetings, conferences and events continued to be very much reduced in the COVID world. So I'm not going to go into expenditure in any detail unless anyone has any questions. The full audited accounts can be found on the website, lots of detail there if you'd like to refer to them. But if there are any questions from the floor, I'm delighted to answer those now. If not, she said so with a raise of the eyebrows, then I will pass back to Dave for the adoption of the accounts and the re-election of the auditors. Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, as we said from Jenny, we now have to take a look and go for approval to adopt the accounts for the year end 31st of December 2021. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Yeah, David Warlow, I'm looking for online and there aren't any, so I'll take
Gary Johnston. Gary Johnston.
And can we have a proposer and a seconder to re-elect the auditor Porter Garland for 2022? Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? And seconder, please. Shanti. Okay. So that moves us on to questions for the Chief Executive and Council. So the floor is now open, both here in the room and online, if you have any general questions to the Chief Executive or to Council. Are there any questions? There aren't usually, but we're here. I don't see any questions in the room. And I don't see any questions online. Going, gone. Okay. So that only leaves any other business. And as I noted at the beginning, the notice of any other business was submitted in writing to the Chief Executive, had to be submitted to the Chief Executive by close of business on the 6th of May, and nothing was received. I therefore close this item. And I thank you all for taking part in this annual general meeting. Thank you all for your continued involvement in the Royal Meteorological Society. Thank you to all my colleagues on council, some of whom I'm meeting face to face for the first time today, and for the staff in preparing for this event. As I say, it's been another challenging year, but I think you can tell from the presentations, both from an activity perspective and from a financial perspective, the staff and the volunteers and everybody else have done a just truly remarkable job. So with that, I close the 2022 AGM of the Society. Thank you very much. So now.